Hi, my name is Krista Borlon. I was here with my wonderful New Leaders Council fellows. A lot of them had to leave for recognition this morning, but I decided to stay and speak on this unexpectedly. I'm going to start with the very frank statement that it's difficult to sit here at this table as a woman and as a mother and as a survivor of domestic violence in front of a majority of men who don't understand what it's like. Because I know that I could come in here and with 1,000 others just like me, literally begging on hands and knees for you to listen to what this would mean for us, and to still have this state say that this doesn't matter to the women who live here. And that's really difficult when I'm trying to think of what I can say to actually make a difference. I've been working with the legislature for 11 years. So I have no misconceptions about what it means to sit here and pour out my personal story with details, knowing that it may not be respected as I sit up here in regards to the outcome for what this would mean for us as a state.
Whatever you might have gone through, we can't express or we don't know. This committee and these members have been very supportive of anything, and I've got a bill right now on domestic violence. But words can't explain the mental trauma someone goes through, and we've talked about that repeatedly here. So no one here will attempt to try to put that or what you might be going through.
Thank you.
No one knows till they're there, and we've seen different family members, and I have a piece of legislation now, so we won't try to do that, but we all have been supportive.
Just wanted that on the table since we're talking about this topic. This has definitely been something that has repeatedly come up for me over and over and over.
That's real quick.
Yes.
I don't often do this, but I think you should take a moment and look to see who's sitting up here, because I think I've authored almost every piece of domestic violence legislation there is. And if you look at the makeup of this committee, I think sitting at the table and proclaiming that assumption is extremely offensive.
Okay.
Because saying that, I agree with you for the legislature as a whole, if you want to make that comment, or especially regarding a variety of progressive issues, but to walk into a committee and say, I don't think what I say is going to matter, I really think you're misreading this room right now.
Okay.
I really, really do. And I think that when you go back to sit down and talk to some of the advocates out there, they're going to tell you, you really are misreading this room right now to make that proclamation. Because I know for a fact, just speaking personally, and I know speaking for Senator Carter and everyone up here, the legislature has been extremely progressive on domestic violence issues in the last couple of years. Extremely progressive. And as an author of almost all of those instruments, just to come up here and say, because you're men, you don't understand. We will never be able to understand what you went through as a domestic violence victim as a woman. I am not saying that. But to say that this is going to automatically fall on callous ears, you're discounting your own testimony before you give it.
Okay. That's
So, okay. Thank you.
So I have been working for 11 years in this state, specifically with the Ledge and with policy creation, starting with anti-human trafficking work. And because of my personal situations, I have not been able to work apart from self-employment, because there has not been an employer that could work with me in regards to the time that I had to take off for work. I have 3 children with special needs regarding trauma-related diagnosis, which means that every week we have a significant number of doctor's appointments. When it comes to getting a protective order, it's not something that happens quickly. I have had protective orders for 6 months recently.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yes.
And you made a comment. I don't want to get too far away from your comment, but I want to make sure you know. Relax. It's all good. You prefaced by saying this was your first time coming, that you were a little nervous, you didn't expect to come up and speak. So I don't want you to think that this is an unfriendly committee. I think Senator Morrell made it very clear that sometimes you should know your audience. That's all. We have all been very supportive. We'll continue to be very supportive. There are some members that think differently. There are some members that won't nearly be as willing to listen and have as much empathy as we do. I think our records individually speak for that. We've all carried significant legislation in support of victims, in support of equal rights, in doing what's right. I appreciate your passion. And God knows we feel the pain that you and so many others have gone through, and that's why we're here fighting. So know that the passion on your side is met with passion on our side, and we're very much on the same page.
Thank you.
And let me just jump in real quick. And this doesn't have to be an adversarial relationship. It really doesn't. I see a lot of friends actually in the audience dealing with this particular piece here. It's pretty common practice that the chair of a committee typically doesn't sponsor or co-sponsor this particular bill. But if you take a look at the very bill that you're referencing right now, almost 75% of this committee co-sponsored this bill. So if you're ever preaching to the choir is sitting before you right now. You know, so I understand the piece. I'm glad that you're here. I understand the passion. I encourage your passion. I think you have some friends on this committee.
Good. And that's good to know.
We like people with passion. You just speak your heart and go.
It started when I had my first son, and I had decided to stay home with him because of situations that arose with the company that I was with. And that ended up being one of the biggest blessings for my life as a mother and a son, and for my son, because it turned out that he was diagnosed with autism at 17 months old. It was my ability to stay home with him that led to that early diagnosis. If I was not spending that significant amount of time with him, I would not have been able to notice the signs and the symptoms of autism with him. Because of the fact that I was there, I was able to advocate for him, and it took reaching out to multiple doctors, going to multiple appointments, and spending a significant amount of time getting that diagnosis for him. And the fact that he was diagnosed at such a young age meant that he was able to get treatment very early. Because of those early interventions, he was able to become significantly more higher functioning than he would have been had I had put him in the daycare that I had been planning on putting him in and left it up to them to notice how he was with his health, and possibly not noticing the symptoms as a working mom until he was significantly older. And so the diagnosis at under the age of 2 for him was a significant deal, considering that when he was diagnosed, the average age was 5. By the time he would have been 5, we would have missed the window to have the progress with him that we had. I mentioned again that when it comes to orders of protection, that it's not an easy process to go through. You go to file it, you have to go during business hours. It requires waiting at the courthouse all day to get those things done. It also requires having to go during the day to prepare for all of those things. And I had to go for one order of protection. We've been in court 4 times over the course of a few months at the beginning. And so as someone who works as an advocate, not being able to be supported by a company who can uphold that ability for me to take that time for myself means that they're missing out on having me work for women who are in the same situation as well, and who I understand exactly what it means for them. So being able to have our state step up and say, this is what we need, not only elevates our value as families, but it elevates the value of parents when it comes to employment, so that my value as an employer is not based on the fact that I can't give as much time as they desire for me right now because of the situations that I'm going through. And for my family, it would mean being able to be in a position where I'm not having to settle for significantly reduced pay for the projects that I'm doing and having to work for myself. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for coming forward.